Elisia sighed deeply. Since things had come to this, she had no choice but to reveal her pregnancy. In any case, she had to tell Madame Lucette when ordering maternity clothes. Elisia grabbed Franz's jacket, which was still warm, and opened her mouth. Actually, I'm pregnant. Really? Her Highness the Princess. Aleisha shouted in a voice that sounded like a scream as she hugged Elisia warmly. Unable to control her raging emotions, she spoke quickly. Blessed. Very blessed, indeed. Aleisha released Elisia and looked at her. With a quiver of her chin, she said in a trembling tone, You will be a wonderful mother, Your Highness. I guarantee it. Aleisha. Alicia's blessed words sent quiet ripples through Elisia's heart. Thanks to her words that losing a child is nobody's fault, Elisia was able to hold on. Aleisha didn't know it, but her few words were what kept Elisia going in life. And now, her blessing filled Elisia's heart completely. If Aleisha, the wonderful mother of Schuyler's daughter, could guarantee this, Elisia felt she could be a good mother to her child. She felt her eyes heat up and opened her mouth. Thank you. Thank you very much. Aleisha smiled warmly at Elisia's thanks. Madame Lucette, who had been observing their conversation with an affected expression, clapped her hands. We have to get moving. We have to prepare the maternity clothes. Madame Lucette whisked the lace from the table in an instant and laid down a soft cotton cloth. We'll also need clothes for the baby. There's a lot to do to be a mother. Yes, let's start preparing. Elisia laughed as she wiped away her tears at the professional words. Yes, there was a lot to do in the future. To become a good mother. When news of the Crown Princess's pregnancy spread, the empire was plunged into a festive atmosphere. The emperor announced that the Crown Princess's child, regardless of gender, would be the heir to the imperial throne, and congratulatory gifts poured in from all over the country. Because of that, the servants of the Crown Prince's palace were busy daily sorting through the gifts. Luckily, my morning sickness isn't severe. Potatoes are the only thing that bothers you, right? Yes, and a little milk too. Elisia lay comfortably on the bed, answering Sarah's questions. When Sarah heard that Elisia was pregnant, she packed her belongings and returned to the palace immediately. She left the affairs of Ambrose's territory to a servant and came to the palace only to care for Elisia. Thanks to Sarah, Elisia was able to rest in a calm atmosphere. The excited atmosphere, which would have been difficult for a soul to handle alone, calmed down thanks to Sarah. Sarah appointed dedicated servants to handle the congratulatory gifts, so Elisia didn't have to sort through them herself but only looked at the arranged lists. Potatoes and milk. Sarah smiled sweetly as she asked Elisia about her condition. In detail. It was said that the former Baroness was also like that when she was pregnant. You seem to resemble your mother, Your Highness. My mother? Elisia's eyes widened at this unexpected statement, then she nodded slowly. Truly. I will remove potatoes and milk from your meals temporarily. The former Baroness was said to have suffered from eating sickness in the late stages of pregnancy, but she did not suffer much, so perhaps you will too, Your Highness. Don't worry. Sarah, who was reassuring Elisia, turned her head when she heard the sound of the door opening. Franz entered through the door the servant had opened. Franz nodded to Sarah and sat on the edge of the bed. When he sat down, the soft edge of the bed sank slightly, making Elisia's body shift. Yes. Franz frowned as if this slight vibration was a major mistake. As he gently grabbed Elisia's shoulders, he heard the sound of the door closing. It seemed Sarah had left feeling bad. In fact, it was time for bed as the sun set. Franz seemed to be thinking about sleep as well, as he wore a black robe instead of his daytime uniform. How was your day? Like usual. Elisia lifted the covers to make room for Franz. Franz smiled and sat beside her. I heard that Schuyler's daughter visited you. Yes, she came with Aleisha. Elisia smiled brightly and pointed to a flower on the bedside table. There was a camellia flower with abundant crimson petals surrounding yellow stamens. She said she looked like me. Elisia's face shone as she remembered the girl's flushed cheeks and sparkling eyes as she shyly presented the flower. Franz listened to her explanation and regarded the flower seriously. A precious gift. I liked the baby too. Elisia caressed her rounded belly, which was beginning to show. Her baby was now making its presence known. As the days passed, her body grew heavier and her belly larger. Franz visited her every morning and evening so as not to miss any change. Franz's hand covered the hand that was carefully caressing her stomach. I will send a thank you gift to Skylar's daughter. Elisia nodded, smiling. She leaned on Franz's broad shoulder and stared at the red flower. She closed her eyes and wished to meet her beautiful child like this flower. Elisia slowly opened her eyes. Perhaps because she had slept so long during the day, she couldn't sleep deeply at night. When she turned her eyes, she saw the blue light of dawn dancing in the bedroom. What time is it? While she was counting the time in her mind, she suddenly realized the other side of the bed was empty. Franz, who had patted her before she fell asleep, was not there. Franz? Elisia sat up in amazement. She wondered if he had left due to an emergency, so she did not turn on the room light. As Lyndon had said, he sometimes spent the night in meetings. No. If it weren't for the moaning that caught Elisia's ears, she would have gone back to sleep. Elisia rose from the bed in surprise, doubting her ears. As she hurried to put on a robe and try to light a candle on the bedside table, she heard another moaning sound. Please, no. Franz? Elisia couldn't turn on the light and walked toward the source of the sound. Franz was not far from the bed. When her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw a large figure lying on the room's sofa. Why is he sleeping here? Elisia frowned and approached Franz. All this time, he had been sleeping in the same bed with her and waking up in the same place. At least, that's how she had known. Therefore, Elisia had never imagined Franz would sleep on the sofa. Every morning, when she opened her eyes, Franz was by her side. Oh. Liz. Franz. Elisia, who was confused, gently shook Franz while he sweated cold and muttered. Despite her touch, he did not easily wake from his deep sleep. Elisia hesitated. If she woke him up, he might never be able to sleep again. Instead of keeping him awake until dawn, perhaps it was better to let him sleep like this. Especially since he was already exhausted from continuous meetings. Don't die. But when desperate words came from between Franz's lips, Elisia couldn't leave him anymore. Wake up, Franz. I'll call the palace doctor. Franz. Elisia grabbed Franz's shoulders tightly and shouted. At her voice, Franz suddenly opened his eyes. Yes. Franz, calm down. Ha. His golden eyes, reflecting the moonlight, trembled aimlessly. After a long period of being unable to concentrate, an image of Elisia gradually began to form in his eyes. When he saw her, his face suddenly frowned. Liz. Franz hugged Elisia warmly in a desperate tone, like someone who had just been rescued from hell. Liz. He clung to her desperately, as if she were his lifeline from hell. He trembled as he searched for Elisia. Liz, don't die, you can't die. I will call the palace doctor. I'm fine, Franz. Elisia calmed him down with a troubled heart. I will not die. I am by your side. I am fine. She repeated this quietly until his trembling subsided. She waited patiently until he was completely free of the shadow of the nightmare. When his trembling finally ceased, Elisia carefully removed Franz's hands, which were holding her. Franz, talk to me. Elisia placed her hand on Franz's face. At that moment, she flinched at the sensation she felt beneath her palm.